Yeah, thanks, Andrea. And first of all, good morning to everybody. I think I would like to welcome, in the name of the European Commission. Andrea belongs to the European Commission, is JRC, but they are not sitting in Brussels. I think this event is quite a good landmark, I would say, in the cooperation between the two services of the Commission. And this is I would say, the end point of a first phase of a cooperation between two DGs of the Commission in order to strengthen the competences of member states, the Commission itself, in terms of counterfactual impact evaluation. And I think that's been quite a nice experience. I would like to thank having the opportunity to have here the Italian authorities also for their hospitality in putting at our disposal this building, magnificent building, and I think that's a splendid opportunity to meet here. Actually, it's also well-timed because, again, the Italian authorities, they help us host another meeting with colleagues of member states in what we call the Partnership for Evaluation for the ESF. That was quite a very intense work in terms of defining, monitoring, and evaluation. And actually, we had also a very intense work regarding how we'll be making use ourselves of counterfactual impact evaluation. So I think the contribution bringing us together from the Italian authorities to discuss on this and from various angles, I think that's been quite helpful. I see that there are also a number of colleagues from the European Commission, not from our own two DGs. I think it's also a signal that actually we have succeeded to integrate other services in the preparation, particularly in the selection of the papers. They were part of the scientific group that helps select papers, and I think also our appreciation of their work. The conference is focusing on counterfactual impact evaluation. The remit is broad, I would say, but we wanted, together with JRC, to have a stronger focus in what are the domains of our competence, which is basically employment policies, social policies, and since very recently also a number of skills policies since the last reorganization of the Commission. But in any case, those are the competences that actually, or the type of policies that we are supporting also through the European Social Fund. Here in the employment, what we do, I think, is quite different compared to what other DGs of the Commission do, which is that we have in our remit the policy making in certain areas, as I said, employment, labor market policies, social policies, skills, but we have also in our responsibilities the management of a financial instrument. Several financial instruments, but we have one that is really big. This is the European Social Fund. This is big money. In the 2007-13, it was 70 billion euros. Now it's even more. And the leverage is even higher because this is money that is much funded also by member states. So actually, it's quite a lot of money. And what we try to do is, through this instrument, to implement the policies that we preach, the policies that we advocate and we promote through the European Employment Strategy, through the Europe 2020 strategy, and so on and so forth. So obviously, having responsibilities for both is quite natural that we are interested into finding out, but this is working or not. Because by the end of the day, we may be satisfied with just enunciate policies, or we might be also happy just to spend money, but is this really working or not? Is it making an impact? And actually, for us, to be honest, that has been a real challenge throughout the years. This is my second life in the world of evaluation. I see a lot of progress that has been done, but still we have 15 years perspective. We are still suffering from some limitations. We are still focusing a lot on monitoring because we are still having sometimes difficulties to know what's going on, how many people were supported, what were the gross effects of the interventions, and the real impact Did it make a difference? Did our interventions succeed in terms of making the difference regarding the absence of intervention? Is it really happening? We are not very sure because we don't have sufficient evidence on this. And this is why we were so keen to promote counterfactual impact evaluations in this context. And this is why we are extremely happy, to be honest, that the new regulations of structural funds have actually hammered, and as I will elaborate later, the need for impact evaluations. Just to give you an example, and I think there is one of the papers presented later by CRE about the intensity or lack of intensity of impact evaluations, and particularly counterfactuals, in the 2007-2013 period. As I said, that was about 70 billion European money. But actually, the number of evaluations was very much reduced. So you draw a kind of ratio. There was about one counterfactual evaluation per 2 billion euros. 2 billion, that's a lot. And within 2 billion, knowing the wide range of interventions that there are available, you can wonder, what was really the scope. So I think there is a lot of ground that we can still gain in the future if we succeed really to do counterfactuals and impact evaluation more in general. I could subscribe completely to the words that you said before in terms of the need of use and so on. And actually, I think the beauty of this event is the possibility of bringing together at least, I would say, 3 of the major stakeholders. I think we are missing maybe one, maybe you're part of them, I'm not sure, which is the real decision makers, the politicians. Because here, I think what we have in the room is mostly academics, so experts. We have, I would say, program managers, some people invited and participating. They have responsibilities to manage the monies of the funds and so on. And the third one, which is some policymakers. And I think, the interest of those and the responsibilities as stakeholders are in some respects different. First of all, obviously, the program managers, they have some needs. What they need is to manage. They have to spend the money. They have to implement it. And they are not, I would say, worried about having many conceptual issues. It's really something very, very pragmatic. Whereas the policymaker, obviously, what they want to know is that, well, I need to prepare my policy proposals because obviously I'm obliged to. There is a political power behind, and I need to do something that might have an impact. Obviously, all this is driven in a way by policy cycles, and there is always difficulties as to how much any evaluative work can actually match this policy cycle. And then we have the practitioners. That basically, as I said, is basically from the academia. But we need to succeed to build the bridges between all those stakeholders, and we need, of course, to develop this through a strong evaluation culture. I think there is a moment in which this is happening, maybe imposed or not, but this is happening. To give an example of this, the European Commission, you know well, we have now a new commission, and actually the structure of this commission features very high this evaluation culture, because we have the first vice president is a vice president also on better regulation. So basically, he has direct responsibility from the president to make sure that any piece of legislation, any new program is actually robust in terms of having analyzed, having assessed all the expected effects, and all options have been examined through this glass, similar for the assessment of legislation and programs in a retrospective way. So I think this is a sign of this culture. But obviously, the policy makers, I would say, they need to find evidence to justify the policy choices. The managers, they need to have also, they need to be aware that in order to be, for evaluations to happen, they need to produce quality data as well, that they need to plan. And yesterday we were discussing in our partnership meeting about evaluation plans, the preparation of the evaluation plans, because and as you are well aware, any counterfactual needs preparation, needs time to do that, so this is something program managers are actually need to understand. But both policymakers, program managers, they have to understand also how counterfactuals are the results, how they are presented, in order to make use of them. And this is where I think is quite important, what you said, that actually the work has to be presented in a way actually that is understandable and that is usable also by all the rest of the stakeholders, policymakers, program managers. I think this is something that we need to come together so that we have this common ground that actually you were mentioning. And I think that's maybe the main aim of this conference, at least we consider this is what could be the major outcome. I hope this conference will give us actually some new ideas, food for thought, in terms of how the counterfactuals could be applied in member states that actually they are not being used at this stage, and also, of course, opportunities for networking. I think that's essential in a meeting, in a gathering like this. Just let me take the opportunity just to recapitulate some or to highlight some of the initiatives that we have been taking during the last years in terms of promoting this evaluation culture, and particularly on counterfactual impact evaluations. Apart from the typical, let's say, meetings that we have with managing authorities and with member states, learning events, I think I would highlight maybe 3 initiatives. First of all, we have published a guide intended for the ESF managing authorities on how to undertake counterfactual evaluations with very practical insights into how you can commission an evaluation, how can you understand the main techniques of counterfactual evaluations. This is very practical, and I think that's important for program managers. We have also supported 2 series of pilot projects, because it's good to preach, but you need to implement it, projects on counterfactual impact evaluations. There has been 2 rounds. All in all, financing 9 projects, and we are very pleased to that actually 2 of the projects will be actually presenting already results during today's session. And we are hopeful that there will be good impact of the rest of the pilots. And finally, we succeeded to have this joint venture with the Joint Research Center for the CRI. And I think that has been, to my understanding, one good way in terms of build the capacities of member states to undertake counterfactual impact evaluations. Yesterday, again, we had feedback from a member state, feedback from other member states, and I think in general we have very positive feedback. And in a way, the demand is evolving. Some member states, they are going stage by stage, others they are basically at maybe earlier stages, but I think this cooperation and the CRI is able actually to fashion and to adapt to these evolving needs. But all these efforts are relevant because the regulations for structural funds in the 2014-2020 programming period, they have considered that evaluations have to assess, apart from the traditional criteria of effectiveness and efficiency, also the impact. So that's something that is very, very clear, prominent, and actually it makes compulsory the evaluation, at least once in the life of the programs, the evaluation of the contribution of the programs to each of the specific objectives of the operational programs. This is a new requirement, and this is something that doesn't mean all these evaluations, impact evaluations, have to be counterfactual, but there have to be impact evaluations. This is already something important. Obviously, I think important for researchers is the fact that the ESF regulation foresees that member states should collect microdata, should collect individual records. It doesn't mean that the Commission should receive them, but it means that the member states have to collect them, have to store them, and that represents a good potential also for exploitation. And this is the challenge, I think, collectively, not just Commission, but member states, to give shape to these data sets that they could eventually be available. Apart from the evaluation, they could themselves, the authorities, Commission, maybe more widely also for research. And also, I would like maybe to highlight that one of the major policy initiatives in terms of importance is the implementation of the Youth Guarantee through the Youth Employment Initiative. This is an initiative aiming at addressing the problem of those youngsters that are neither in employment, education, or training by providing them before 4 months after they are in a situation like this with some job offer or training offer, a qualification offer. And this is funded through the ESF. Now, there are much more stringent requirements in terms of evaluation, because there should be 2 evaluations, 2015 and 18, already impact evaluations, both of them. And actually, the obligation also to record individual data, not also on long-term, what we call long-term results. Basically, if after 6 months of the intervention, they are still they are in a job, or if they have acquired qualifications, actually what you could say is a result. This is compulsory every year. So there's a good material there, actually, to undertake potentially counterfactual impact evaluations. So I would just remind what I said. This is planning time for member states. So having in mind what are the challenges and what are the needs could be important for their preparation of their evaluation plans. And we are looking forward to see how all of us we can succeed in undertaking this process of strengthening the evidence-based or policy making in this field. So I will stop here, just convinced of the success of the conference, and that we will be really successful to build these bridges I was making reference before. Thank you.